Our speaker today is Jeff Stein, and he's going to tell you about himself, but he was a founder of the film department at Watkins, and, you know, Steve gave us a talk about Watkins back in the fall, so here he is. I know y'all looking forward to it.
Turn the lights down and get me, when I'm going to show a few clips, I have to apologize because they are a little dark. That's why we need to have the lights as dark as possible. So, but before we get going, I think first I need to give you a few foundational messages. Okay? All right. First one's from Carl Jung. The most important question anyone can ask is, what myth am I living? Even more important, be silent. Listen. Have you recognized your madness? And do you admit it? Have you noticed that all your foundations are completely based on madness? Are you all ready now? So then we will begin. Okay. Now I'll leave you hanging to bid you welcome to Nashville with a little introduction. When I arrived here many decades ago after working for previous decades in Hollywood, Berry Field Metro Airport looked very different than it does today. Many of you have been around to witness just how much Nashville has changed. Like Nashville, I too was primed for a change when I arrived. Many would call it a midlife crisis, orphaning myself from my previous career and wandering in search of what would then fulfill me. I loved films, certain films, shall I say. I loved the mythological structure aligning with the historical, sociological, and psychological underpinnings that moved not only me, but vast audiences to connect with them the way they did in the 20th century. So I began doing workshops about what made certain films so moving. Among the first was an earlier permutation of this one on Nashville that I did for a pre-Osher elder hostel at Scarrett Bennett. And those led me to my next career in teaching the hows and whys of meaningful motion pictures at TSU, Watkins, MTSU, and Vanderbilt, and to the writing of my book, Life, Myth, and the American Family Unreeling, the Spiritual Significance of Movies for the 20th Century. But enough about what led me here, and to the graphics I have flashed before you that are fleshed out so much more in my book, including how Nashville presents the family of America itself in orphaning and wandering stages. Stages we also seem to find ourselves in today. And before I get on with the art and meaning of the movie that is my focus here, since this is the Nashville History Club, I thought I'd give you an avenue, if you would like such homework, to dive deep into how the places and personalities of the 1970s Nashville figured in the film. The Nashville Chronicles, the making of Robert Alton's masterpiece, gives perceptive details of familiar locations back then, such as those you can see on the screen. Even though Stewart's book was published in 2000, I only came by reading it this very year, and was pleased to discover that our local artist and my teaching colleague, Bill Myers, did the background for the book cover taken from the graphic tapestry he did for the opening credits and music album. Also, if you are into celebrities, it is fun to read not only which personages many of the 24 characters were modeled on, but even more how the personal lives of the actors molded their characters during the filmmaking, as well as did the mercurial dynamics of Altman's interactions with cast and crew. Which gets us now to the uniqueness of Altman's filmmaking style that particularly manifests in Nashville. Even though he starts out with a script, in this case written with a great deal of local research by Joan Tewksbury, once he gathered his ensemble of cast and crew in location here, all gets improv'd, often spontaneously, based on encountered circumstances as well as out of personal histories and confrontations. So you have the actors not only making up their own lines, but also being directed to write their own songs. Pointedly, none of these characters is the main protagonist or hero. This is because Altman audaciously breaks norms by capturing the characters together as a composite of the American family at its bicentennial, struggling through classic low orphaning and wandering archetypes, otherwise structurally understood as moving through fall and death on journey arcs. I really wish I had time to fully explicate these mythological structure in the contextual detail I do in my book. But rather now, I want to look at the metaphor through which we can view what Altman has done. He has presented for us a tapestry of America, whose ultimate tapestry is the American flag. How does he do this? By weaving and weaving threads whose whole view we can only see by backing up. In the first 4 minutes of the film, 20 of these threads are introduced at the airport in ways that have them weaving past and through each other. If we try to hook onto any one of them alone for the whole journey, we'll get stuck in the stitching. He does this again and again at the crash site on the interstate, at Opryland, and all the other locations. Wonderful open-ended discussions can be indulged in construing which threads of fallen socialism these particular colors, fibers, and lengths, each of various orphans and wanderers of Nashville represent. Religion, race, ambition, narcissism, celebrity worship, social mobility, and social dislocation are some of the most prominent characters in the weave. We will focus, however, on the foundation thread that I showed up front and to which all the others are tied in giving this American tapestry its dimensions. It is the thread of campaign soundtrack promoting a third-party reform candidate who looms as the promise of America myths rewoven throughout the entire movie, and a candidate whom we never see. The soundtrack also imparts to the tapestry a third dimension, the sound truck. Nashville has a multiplicity of oral and as well as visual threads. A technique peculiar to Altman is to have a great deal of overlapping dialogue. We hear only the bits of color that string together to make the whole. Weaving in and around the dialogue, we also have the voiceovers, the off-screen sounds, and very significantly, the music. 27 different songs, folk, rock, and gospel in minor keys, as well as country in the major key. It is intentional that Altman unfurls this banner of the political underpinnings of the family of America in Nashville rather than in DC, which would dye too parochial a color into the thread of politics. Altman has a more pervasive palette. The site of Nashville works on many levels. First, Nashville is the home of country music. We would be hard-pressed to find something more socio-mythically explicative of Americans in the 70s than country. It was a music that sang about personal pain, tragedies, yearnings, tiny triumphs, blind patriotisms, absolute virtues, and heartland fantasies. Nashville is also a celebrity city, making it a city of zealous fandom. In the mid-70s, it was known as the bus tour capital of the world. This made a city where masses of common Americans came to bask in the glow of their favorite country stars. Even more significant might be the sense of universal elevation afforded by physical proximity. Next to campaigning politicians, perhaps no celebrity group courts its groupies with an image of more humble availability than do some country artists. And for those who hope to do even more than just breathe the same air as the great and glorious, Nashville represented a socio-mythic melting pot of American dreams. Here one could become among the shiniest stars in the firmament, even a Grand Ole Opry Hall of Famer. The American dream of opportunity sings from sea to shining sea in Nashville. There is an even more classical mythological reason for selecting Nashville as the metaphorical home for our American tapestry. The Parthenon that led to Nashville's nickname as the Athens of the South. It is the home of Athena, the goddess of wisdom, including craftsmanship, skill, and strategy in war. Wisdom, some think, comes from education. Nashville had more colleges and universities in the environs than anywhere else in the South. Politically speaking, our expectations for education are that it will assist and sustain democracy. Pericles declaimed democracy, patriarchal as it was, at the foot of Athena's statue in her temple of the Parthenon. So it is that Altman uses the hoist of Nashville to raise his flag of America over the mythological temple of our political being. Here we have a titillating opportunity to view a classic contradiction of American socio-mythologies. Because of its country rube overtones, in contrast to its considerable cultural and educational enterprise, Nashville maintained the image of unblemished American heartland. It was clearly not New York or Chicago or Los Angeles. It wasn't even sullied Dallas. It was a socio-mythic place preserving an image of ignorant innocence untouched by political defoliation. As such, Nashville was a geography of mind, metaphorically ripe for satiric exploration. It would have been hard to find a better place during the 1970s for American sociomyths to battle in the tapestry of bicentennial status taking. I know everything I've been saying is pretty heavy, but bear with me. Or don't. Okay. Through all the themes mentioned above and more, thread continuously throughout the whole film, the construction of the construction of the tapestry's design emerges in full view during the final 17 minutes. The ending sequence opens up at Centennial Park with the TV commentator Howard K. Smith giving a rundown of the alternative that Hal Philwood Walker offers. He attributes the staying power of Walker to the raw courage of this man, running for president, willing to battle vast oil companies, eliminate subsidies to farmers, tax churches, abolish the Electoral College, change the national anthem, and remove lawyers from government, especially Congress. The threads of America's tapestry weave their constructions around each other as Walker's sound truck makes a circuit in front of the Parthenon, on whose pillars hangs a huge American flag. Walker's motorcade weaves onto the grounds in a line of black limousines that resemble a funeral cortege. The song that accompanies the imagery reinforces the metaphor of journeying in the transitional lands of death. Our country cries for peace today. There's trouble in the USA. If that isn't enough, Wade, the token angry black man, weaves through in his Falcon pickup, yelling ostensibly to other drivers, "You're going the wrong way. All y'all are going the wrong way." These simple words ring out with a sense of the dashed dreams of all the concerted efforts of the 60s. We are a people now caught in the flux of not knowing which way to go. Let's watch. And while you do watch, watch the weaving that goes on. Well, if it worries you, I'd like to give you a few more views of what I saw before I open it up to your madnesses. The argument between Barnett and Triplett over Walker's replacement party banner hanging under the flag is full of the natural blunders that normally occur in heated exchanges. Its significance is that no matter how Barnett attempts to escape the political context of their lives, he won't be able to manage it. The thread of Barnett is that of the manager husband who continually fails to manage outcomes despite his bombast. The thread of Dell in his white bucks is of the hustling local contact that doesn't realize how out of contact he really is, especially with his own wife and deaf kids. The thread of Triplett is of the campaign manager whose bemused sophistication among the local rubes misguides him into believing he is the one who really has everything under control. Who knows what this year will bring, sings the message that none of us is in control. On the surface, each of these threads is looking for some other stitching to fulfill what it thinks is its intended pattern. Tricycle Man looks for any kind of divergence. Star for Albuquerque, Wade for Suleen Gay, Opal for her grandiose American story, L.A. Joan for any male attention whatsoever, Bill to show that his wife, Mary, he can play the same philandering game, PFC Kelly for Barbara Jean to give him someone to believe in, Mr. Green for L.A. Joan to pay respect to family, and Kenny, any way of escaping his feelings of impotence. Underneath the surface is the stitching of orphans and wanderers, lost and confused as they grope through this death transition, leaving behind a wholly unintended larger picture. The American family dislocated and disoriented. So it is absolutely fitting that Barbara Jean's seemingly non sequitur song about her Idaho home is brimming with nostalgia for a time of mythologized innocence. We were young then, we were together, we could bear floods and fire and bad weather. She sings these words as Kenny looks up with an expression of betrayal at the huge flag waving behind her. If any thread in this tapestry is the embodiment of sociomythic innocence, it is unquestionably Barbara Jean. Though she tries continually to remain on that perfect pedestal wearing flowing white gowns, her fragility rends and stains at every turn. It is right on, then, that as the country idol singing the profound melancholy of something lost, it is she and not the unseen Hal Philip Walker that is targeted by the alienated Kenny. The assassination of our innocence in the bodies of the Kennedys. and Martin Luther King Jr. prop up the 70s and this film like legs of a platform that can be kicked out at any time, anywhere, without notice or rationality. After all the research and psychological analysis, what we know about Lee Harvey Oswald, James Earl Ray, and Sirhan Sirhan can be summed up by the archetypical places of descent and death into which Kenny resides. Wishing for trust and clarity, Kenny slays the messenger that confirms his own abandonment and alienation. More immediately and pervasively, however, is the shock that a no account could work such havoc so unexpectedly. Life becomes very tenuous when people so low in the spiral of their personal journeys can destroy at any moment our hopes of regaining peace, innocent peace, and slaying the messiahs that hope will take us there. This isn't Dallas. This is Nashville. But of course this is Dallas, as everywhere in America is Dallas now. No vestige of the old Garden of Innocence remains in any mental or geographical corner of the country. But out of this fall, something more real is made available. It is the cosmological knowledge that life will go on. Out of death comes rebirth. The loss, once again, of the socio-myth of innocence expands us through orphaning and wandering on the great outward journey toward even more promising lands of atonement. The tapestry of America will reweave. Sing, somebody sing. Like a good contradiction, the one who gets the mic is Albuquerque, seeking her own independence and identity. But hers is not a country song. It is a mantra from Bill, Mary, and Tom's folk rock repertoire, backed up by the Jubilee Gospel Choir. Without question, we are deep in the full mixed tabernacle now, caught up in the emotion of a powerful, curious litany. You may say that I ain't free, but it don't worry me. Albuquerque, with Barbara Jean's blood on her forefingers, repeats the words, gathering strength as we see the character threads unraveling and reweaving. Though the lost and wandering still abound, there is a suggestion that resurrection is at hand. After all these character threads have weaved off and disappeared into the whole, we are left with the flag and the crowd as it joins together in one, as a work of art. At first, the crowd, like the flag, was ruffled, but it doesn't disperse or flee in panic. Instead, it absorbs the death throes and keeps it going, getting into the spirit with Albuquerque. Here, Altman focuses on a whole new batch of threads, specifically the children. In the last sequence, before he pulls back to show us the whole of the tapestry, he strings together 10 different close-ups of kids singing and clapping in the crowd. Many are with their parents. There is no dissension here. The vision of toddlers on fathers' shoulders is of a wholeness that renews hope with each new family. When Altman does pull back and back and back even more, we get the whole tableau, the family of America, the Parthenon, and the flag. Even the replacement party banner for renewal fits the picture. Finally, Altman tilts up to the gray sky above, not blue, not gray, not black, but gray. Sometimes nature cooperates in providing serendipity. That's because when they were shooting the scene, it was going to rain, it didn't rain, it was going to rain, it's not raining, and he got a number of hours when it wasn't raining, okay? But the sky was gray. And to me, that means something, because gray is not the color of innocence. Instead, it is the color of growth. It is the color of knowledge, that the only thing known about the future is that it goes on. Gray is the territory in which we are offered the opportunity of finding our way. Okay, now, you can hit me with your madnesses. and your points of view and what you saw or what it didn't do for you. Anyone? Anyone have, I know that, interesting, I did a talk with John Siegenthaler on Words, and he brought up the fact that so many people in Nashville did not like this film because they particularly felt that it was a satirical and not very pretty view of Nashville. What I'm trying to get you to see, it's not about Nashville. It's about America, where Nashville was the perfect place to present that view. But, any thoughts?
Just
Yes.
not a question.
Yes, filmmaker, tell me.
It's not a question so much as an observation. I haven't thought about this movie or seen it in a long time, but it resonates more as much today as it did during the Watergate era.
Yes?
It really hits home,
Mm-hmm.
and not that much has really changed.
Well, we move in my book, I talk about the political cycles that work us through, and there are times where America feels better and more at one, and then there are times where it then has to fall and go through periods again, but sometimes we feel like it could get even worse. So. Yes?
Well, I will say there were a lot of people that didn't like it, and especially in the country music business. But at that time, in the 70s, I was 30-ish, and we loved it. You know, I was part of a more rebellious group of folks in town, and we first of all, were excited when it was filming here because everybody wanted to be in it. Of course, I couldn't because I had a real job and was at work every day, but I had friends that went and had a great time, and then when we saw it, we thought it was great because it exposed a lot of the problems with our culture.
So do you think there was in terms of the view, there might be a generational view, or people got too literal into what the music was doing, or feeling it was particularly attacking country music or whatever, but maybe younger people, you must have been about 12 or 13 then.
About 30.
I own a big piece of memorabilia right there. And the first scene, when you show the van coming around the corner, there's a 62 Impala coming up. That was my mother.
That was your mother, you said? Yes.
She had driven into town, didn't know what the hell was going on.
Well,
I still own that car.
even in
It's
that,
not white anymore as it was in the movie, but I still own that car.
even in that scene, you can see to me, I can see the weaving, because there is a red Volkswagen Beetle, and then another one comes in front of the truck, just like threads in there like that. And it just seemed artistically. Now, one of the points that I want to make, and the thing that I talk about what sociomythology and cosmomythology are, and if any of you read The Power Myth or some of the other people that I refer to in my book, the fact is that when Altman, I'm not even suggesting Altman, had this concept of what is mythologically called the orphan and the wanderers. That is what stories are stories that are told, and they often have basic mythology under them. And if they didn't, we wouldn't resonate to them. But it's not as if when the people are writing them and the people that are making them specifically are thinking, I need a wanderer now, and I need an orphan now, and I need a warrior now, and I need this. They're not. They're looking at our human condition with the people who have studied mythology, have explained in forever, is brought to us under the surface. But it's not as if, even when I watch the movie to start with, I don't say, oh boy, he's in his fall now, and he's going through death, and oh wow, this is when he's going here. It's only after, if the movie moves you, And for me, moving, and then of course, because I studied and I worked in Hollywood, I went to film school. I didn't even get it at film school. I got it from some people when I was working in Hollywood. That all of this started meaning something to me. And ultimately, after it all, I felt like, I'm sorry I studied movies. I wish I'd studied mythology more. We should have gotten my degrees in mythology, but I have studied it a lot. So, I mean, even, you know, if you're interested, even if you talk, this is from, some of you have probably read Homo sapiens or Homo Deus from Yuval Harari. And he calls it fiction instead of myth. But, you know, basically, America, he says right here, I like what he says here. If you examine any large-scale human cooperation, you will always find that it is based on some fiction, like the nation, like money, like human rights. Okay? It is that we have to believe in things. And in order for us to work together, we have to agree in them together. And when we get polarized, we stop agreeing on them and fighting about them. But, you know, people can call it different things, but, and, you know, if for instance here, if I talk about the you know, cycle of death and resurrection, if we think about every period we go through in our lives and the changes that occur with us, and like I said with me, when I came here, I was in midlife crisis. Well, now I'm in older life crisis, but anyway, I'm going through wandering, and I'm orphaned. I've lost a lot of stuff. We lose friends, and we have to figure out how to deal with that. And then we figure it out maybe, and then we get into where we want to do something that is meaningful for us, and we start to develop a connection and power and try to get back to where we are whole again. And that lasts for maybe 3 minutes for me. But anyway, I wanted to, you know, example of some wonderful books by two authors, of course, Joseph Campbell, but Carol Pearson has written such wonderful books on mythology and to help us understand our lives. And I am using some of her terminology when I'm looking at the film. Yes?
What year did the film come out? What year?
It came out in '75. It was made here in '74. Came out in '75. I always thought, well, it's bicentennial. It must have been '76, but it came out just in '75. Yeah. So, anybody else? Yes.
I have a question about the guy that shot the woman. Well,
Yes.
first of all, did she die? Maybe I didn't catch that. Did she die?
Did he die?
Did the woman die?
They didn't. He didn't tell us whether the woman died, because that's not what he wants to tell us.
Oh, okay. Well, what I was really, the camera was on this man for so long. I mean, at first he looked like he was really enthralled with her singing, but actually he was very upset with it. And so he got his gun out and shot her. But the camera was on him for so long.
Well, it was studying, and of course, what I couldn't do is show you these threads earlier in the film in terms of what was going on with them and what the connection was, or what they were trying to do and what they represented in terms of their own past. But it was on for him because it was studying his feelings more and more, that she was, as I say, she was if you think about who shot John Lennon and why, you know, shot a hero. You know, we shoot those people that for others they seem like they are the leaders and the messiahs and are doing everything. So it's just showing that he is totally lost and alienated. And so you have her telling the story of the innocent America in her Idaho song, and you have the American flag behind her, and it makes no sense for any of them who shoot people, you know. And that's what it's saying. It's their own territory, yes.
Well, all through the film, though, the shots to him, you could tell he was disenfranchised. He was troubled.
Yes.
Like, he was, all through the film, they showed him that way. This film, though, was during the age, to me, of political assassinations. And then this came up like it was, we were moving away from targeted assassinations to random ideological assassinations, like John Lennon and Barbara Jane.
Or Charlie Kirk now.
Right.
So, yes, that's why it still goes on, and it's
Yeah.
telling us
But I
that.
feel like it changed.
But yes, it was after the series of assassinations in the sixties, and it was also being made during Watergate, which was in some respects a feeling of loss of trust in the country because of loss of trust of the leadership, yes.
And then following that, immediately after Watergate, there were 2 attempts on Gerald Ford.
Right.
So,
But the word, in order to describe Kenny disenfranchisement, I think is, what, the psychological study of why some of these people do these things is, to me, explained by mythological archetypes of their going down into a wandering, alienated, abandoned, and all they want to do is shoot and look for somebody to do that with. Yes?
Did the film receive much critical acclaim in the filmmaking industry?
It's fascinating. Pauline Kael just touted it, and thought it was the greatest. And it didn't do well at the box office. And because it didn't do well at the box office, then a lot of critics came in and started finding fault with it. And it actually developed far more of a following as time went on, and people saw what it was, how it was talking about us. I don't mean you and me, but others here. And but yes, there was, it didn't do all that well as much as they thought. They thought it was going to be a boom, a blockbuster. And of course, there were many people here in the South and in the South that didn't like it. But I could say the reviews were all over the map. At first, very positive, and then a number of negatives. Yes?
Well, you presented perhaps the most fascinating analysis of a movie, and connecting with myth and so many other very deep thinking. And that has been fascinating. The movie, I asked it again when the movie came out, and you said 1975. I was in college at the time, and I remember there was hype about the movie. And I thought it was awful. I thought it was boring and laborious, and those ending scenes you showed, the kind of final scene where you're seeing the audience and everything, I thought, is this damn movie ever gonna be over? This was awful. And I also felt like, because I was born here, raised in Murfreesboro, I was at the University of Tennessee at the time, it was a kind of terrible description of Nashville. It was like, gosh, do I really want to live here? This is a crazy place with crazy singers and crazy politicians and corrupt people and shooter, and I thought, gosh, and I remember leaving the film saying, this is awful.
I felt the same way, and I was 25 and living up north. And before I saw it, I thought it was gonna be about, like, lively and musical and stuff, and then it was just so harsh.
It's rough,
Just
and
so
I don't know,
harsh.
but you have shared with us a completely different viewpoint, and I'm so glad that I came today to hear this. I'm not sure that I want to see the movie again, but
I mean, if you've seen Robert Altman's films, it's very much like what he does.
what are other Altman films?
Brewster McCloud, MASH,
Yeah.
journey, and we've seen covenants, we've seen assassinations, and it was very, very powerful, and I think it will have another life. In fact, I'm back on my 75th birthday, and I was thinking, we love running out the door to show movies upstairs, you can do that. And I thought, the nice thing too is so many had that same feeling that you're mentioning it when we saw it originally, which is like, but I was so powerfully touched by it, so it does that. And the other thing, when they showed it, a few months ago, they had some wonderful black and white documentary beforehand, some film that, were you there?
No.
For this, it's on my phone, if anybody wants to listen, try to send it, it's marvelous, many pearls coming out, it's everybody, you know, all the great country music folks who were invited to the premiere. And many of all of them are, and, what's your first name? Sarah Cannon, yes. Just true to who she is, her personality, very diplomatic about it. But, she said, I was surprised and I was a little worried, but I think it's everybody needs to take from it. But that part is remarkable to hear the country music, stars themselves, very active.
And they were modeled, I mean, Gibson, Haven Hamilton was modeled somewhat on Hank Snow, and Barbara Jean on Loretta Lynn. And Loretta Lynn did not like it at all, she would not go to it, she wouldn't do it.
Oh, y'all